Hey, buddy. Eyes up here.
Lion Runner with reviews and revisits on Instagram and YouTube. On Instagram, it's reviews _and_ revisits. I've watched and was enthralled by Superman as a little kid watching Superman the movie, as it and its successors aired regularly on HBO in the 80s. First watching it at 5 or 6, I was captivated by Christopher Reeve's presence and majesty that the 6-foot-plus hero evoked in his bold blue suit with commanding red boots and flowing cape, hitting you with that S emblem, which we all factually know really was meant for his name, Superman, but later lore was retrofitted to make it a Kryptonian symbol of hope. And that's what Superman has always represented to generation of comic book superhero aficionados and fantasy film voyeurs. After 1987's Superman 4, The Quest for Peace disappointed us all, Superman returned to the big screen in 2006's Superman Returns, a criminally underrated good film with a great Lex Luthor rendition by Kevin Spacey, with a great weapon that posed a real threat. Once other problems came up with the DC Universe's plans, that version of Superman got shelved, and next we got the dark, brooding Snyderverse Superman with a great Superman actor in Henry Cavill, whose version of Superman becomes Batman's footstool, not the Superman I was looking for. So the best thing I saw in the Superman 2025 trailers was Superman returning as the Man of Hope. This holds up in the film, and that's what makes me hopeful about this character and the DC Cinematic Universe. Mostly for this character. There are other worrisome things about James Gunn's approach in this movie and what's being proposed, such as emphasizing characters early on that normies don't know and that we don't care about and aren't inspiring. Unlike when Marvel introduced an only mildly known Iron Man, it looked like an aspiring character you wanted to know who inspires just with his presence and intrigue. Clayface? Not so much. But I digress. Let's get back to Superman. I note this guiding light tone of hope in my written review on Instagram. To find it, recall that it's reviews _and_ revisits on Instagram. I write, quote, I enjoyed this film mostly due to a hopeful and optimistic Superman played with surprisingly apt gravitas by David Cornsweet. End quote. For me, Christopher Reeves is the Superman. He's the standard bearer. He gave us the first long-form and modern portrayal of Superman, and his portrayal made us believe a man could fly. Not only that, it gave us, particularly those who don't read the comics, the movie watchers that make the difference between flop and profitability for these films. Reeves' portrayal gave us a concept of Superman as the ultimate Boy Scout who believes in truth and justice and is self-sacrificing to humanity's benefit. Likewise, it gave us our perception of Clark as a clumsy nerd boy. This later portrayal Cornsweet doesn't lean into much. He's kind of a Giga Chad even when he's Clark. But then, again, there were barely a couple of minutes of the film where he was Clark around people that didn't know he was Superman. Where in the Reeves films, he spent a lot of time as Clark at the office and in general public, putting on an act of being clumsy and goofy to keep people off the scent of him as Superman. On the other hand, Cornsweet, other than being in the office, one scene that I can recall is only out of his Superman uniform when he's with Lois, and then when he's with his parents, who all know that he's Superman, so he doesn't need to put on an act. That part of Superman was lost in this movie. You wouldn't know of it if you were a kid and this was your introduction to Clark. However, Cornsweet shines, bringing all the gravitas of being Superman and commanding his scenes of assertiveness. You believe he is Superman, but further he aptly balances it with the humility of a self-deferring superhero, as Clark is meant to be. I enjoyed his portrayal of the character, and second to the hope aspect being brought back to the Superman, his performance carries a movie that otherwise has some issues. Rachel Brosnahan was good, but not great. More the writing than her so much. I wrote in a piece before Superman came out on Instagram about how Brosnahan, having played a similar type character in the Marvelous Miss Maisel as to Lois Lane, especially Margot Kidder's Lois Lane, that she would really be great, both having the kind of comic timing and the assertive personality and that kind of same combination that really made Margot Kidder's portrayal kick. I felt like she could bring the same to this character again and bringing back that portrayal. I talked about Margot Kidder's Lois Lane having spunk and grit mixed with sex appeal and comical flair, and that Brosnahan's Marvelous Miss Maisel's character had the same attributes, making her perfect to play this character and bring back the Kidder-esque type Lois Lane. And she does that to the most part, but she's not given a great amount to do, or she's not as integral to the plot in this movie as Margot Kidder was in the original two Superman movies. But also, I like the combo of Rachel Brosnahan and David Cornswet as Clark and Lois. I think they work kind of well together, and that's a combo that I'd be glad to see going forward for some years to come. On the other hand, I have rave reviews for Mr. Terrific. He was terrific. He was really great, and the actor in that role really played him well. That character is not a character that I know of, with my history being from the movies, my history with DC being the movies and Super Friends cartoons, probably back in the 90s. And so this was not a character that has come up in either one of those realms. So he's new to me, but his kind of combination of his powers being his intelligence and then some of the powers he has and the weapons he's able to use and the combination of those weapons you really haven't seen before. So his kind of power set is unique. And it's really intriguing and kind of the way he's kind of arrogant, but with dry pan humor, and you kind of believe his arrogance is for real. It's not really like put on. It's a good and interesting character, and I'd like to see him in the future. So that was a really good addition, I think, to the movie. Since they went ahead and introduced him in this movie, and he plays a central role, they should have made his solo movie next instead of Clayface. I'm intrigued to see him again. Clayface? Not so much. Further, the movie sets up great at first. This border war between these two made-up countries, which looks somewhat like the short-lived war between Thailand and Cambodia that tipped off shortly after the movie came out, was a really good item of contention, particularly where Superman intervenes and the issue of nations' sovereign rights puts him in the crosshairs of international affairs. Also apt was that it would turn out that international corporate interests were ultimately behind it all. But then things start to go left. As I wrote on my Instagram page's review, quote, "These are the good parts of the movie, but then there are so many strange choices that kept things mute and allowing this movie to be a great film. They start the movie off with Superman getting his butt kicked, and that's the case to nearly the end of the movie. There's so much technology happening, each piece a devastating achievement by itself, yet all of it combined can't bring Superman to heel. If Lex, also portrayed well, can create pocket universes at will, clone Superman, capture Element Man, create technology to repair the damaged message from Superman's parents that the alien Kryptonian technology in the Ice Castle couldn't repair, and probably some other things that I can't think of. And yet not just one of these, but with all of these, Lex couldn't beat Superman, then what's left to be tried in future Superman movies? I mean, you brought all of these threats and massive technology, literally creating pocket universes at will, and you still can't get the job done. What possibly could ever be done to be a threat to him, if not this? On top of that, you had international sentiment against him, and that was clumsily done. I can understand theatrically why it was done as it was, to quickly move the plot along with something that was at least plausible playing out on camera with some show, don't tell. But just because they see a video playing of his father telling him to come to Earth and take over shouldn't lead to instantaneously everyone turning on the man who had showed them ultimate character, and often at his own risk and to his own detriment. That could have been played out better and more believably. Then we have the Hammer of Bavaria slash Ultraman, Superman's clone. Yes, it's confirmed by DC Universe Wiki that the Hammer of Bavaria is the same guy in the hooded black spandex outfit throughout the movie, who is revealed to be a clone of Superman at the end. What's ultra weird about this is, if Lex could make one clone, why wouldn't he make a team of clones and ensure they can defeat Superman instead of leaving it to one-on-one chance? I bet they'll say they used a little bit of DNA material to make the one clone, but that's stupid. This is not early 1990s DNA technology, where if you only had a small amount of DNA, you would use up all of the DNA material in doing one or two tests, due to the processing of the material to extract the DNA. For many years now, in our real world level of technology, they have been able to replicate DNA samples to do numerous testing. The same methods used to grow Superman's clone could be used to replicate the DNA material and make multiple Supermans. Further, how could Lex possibly believe he could be able to control the Superman? To that matter, how can he control Spinning Blade Hand Girl? Why would anybody bow before Lex Luthor? He's just a human. There's no development in this movie that explains the nature of these relationships. Likewise, if he can control other metahumans or superhumans, why can't he employ these same methods to control Superman? This is the difference in the majesty of the first two Christopher Reeves Superman movies and James Gunn's Superman. Superman was a man of wonder, seemingly untouchable. That's why the threat of Zod in the second film is so daunting and feels so real, to see that there are now three others of him. But in the first Reeves movie, Lex as the villain is very grounded as a villain. He has no super technology or superhuman flunky with which to threaten Superman's reign. He has to use cunning and wit. He's not even initially going after Superman in that movie. He uses his cunning to physically go on the ground with his assistants and steal missile launch capability so that he can create a crisis to inflate the real estate of land he's bought at dirt cheap prices to create his riches. He only goes after Superman when he realizes Superman will interfere with this by stopping the launched missiles. Yet even then, he has to use his own brain power to connive Superman into walking into a trap, using reverse psychology to get him into proximity of kryptonite, which then he hides and led to further deceive him, having had learned of Superman's weaknesses. The more grounded approach makes the fantasy more real, like a real person could actually challenge Superman. Even in fantasy, having a level of groundedness makes it not such a far-flung fantastical thing, but gives it a fantasy wonderment that can be touched, where you can suspend disbelief and actually imagine a world where a man can fly that might yet be tamed. Superman 2025 just throws overwhelming technology that couldn't be, just one stacked on top of another, all harnessed by one guy, with control over people or meta people that he couldn't realistically have. And this goes totally unexplained, not to mention bony vapid Eve Tessmacher is useless. Donna's Eve Tessmacher was integral to Lex's plot to steal the missile launch capability and to get super rich. In this one, she's just a waste of space taking selfies. Why does Lex even have her there? Leading me to scream, "Not my Miss Tessmacher." All of this might lead you to believe that I don't like this movie, though stating from the outset that I enjoyed it. And I gave you my two-part thesis of why to start out laying the predicate. Because you can enjoy something overall while having honest critiques of things that are less than stellar about it. Same goes for people. You can be someone's fan or a politician's supporter and still admit their flaws or lesser desirable qualities. Support of something doesn't mean blind fealty and pretending everything is great about it. Getting back to those opening theses, I still felt a hopeful exuberance in the tenor of this Superman movie. And that is a very important part. In an era where nearly everything is painted with jaded pessimism because the self appointed cool kids think their snarky descent to all norms and standards of good makes them edgy and above it all, and just a basic sense of good and decency is labeled as Pollyanna, as Gunn himself noted in an interview. Further, Superman delivers as the character he's supposed to be, with the strong character assist from Mr. Terrific, who I'm now intrigued by. The portrayal of these characters was fun. Superman was the Super Boy Scout again, self assured but humble and self sacrificing, unflinchingly for what is good, and not with the moral relativism inner dialogue questioning the nature of what's actually good. Lois Lane was Lois Lane again, the sexy girl boss before there was girl bosses, but with three dimensions, being assertive, but feminine and not eschewing the male gaze, on her quest to be the greatest unflinching, uncompromising reporter. Nicholas Hoult is the Lex Luthor we expect. He's totally believed in this role from a character delivery perspective, though all of what they made his character capable of doing might be ridiculous. And even the Jimmy Holt Olsen look and portrayal was right on the money. And even though Perry White is a race swap, where I don't like where that's done in most cases in modern cinema, as a black man, I prefer that we get our own original characters rather than hand-me-downs. And due to the fact that it's often done to the detriment of story and character development, where the race swap or gender swap becomes the character's whole character. So I dislike when it's done inorganically for political reasons. This, however, is one of the cases where the nature of the character was not changed to fit a racial imperative. On top of the fact that Wendell Pierce is a great actor and nailed it as he always does, the characterization of Perry White stayed exactly as it's always been. The race change didn't affect the story whatsoever, and this type of character is actually right up Pierce's alley, so he's easily believable in the role. The banter with Green Lantern and Superman, and also with his team, is great, as he tries to rival Superman in his own mind. Hawk Girl was fine, but mostly only useful as a counterparty to Lantern. The bottom line is, this movie was fun, replete with action sequences that weren't too over the top, like in so many movies, and it never had any lags of boredom. It had a strong underlying storyline, where the one grounded aspect of Luthor's part of the plot is that it was an international corporation manipulating a foreign war. That aspect is similar to original Superman the movie, where this Luthor has a grounded will-to-life purpose that he wanted Superman out of the way for. The final test of if a movie was really enjoyable is, am I still thinking about it days later? When I come back from a movie and it's such a bore, I have no thoughts of it after seeing it for days until I see a commercial for it or a video commenting on it, and I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot I even went to see that bore fest. With this Superman, I find myself reliving moments of the movie and random moments in my mind for days to come, with mostly warm feelings. Sometimes, though, even with internal dialogue points of debate about the choices made that I didn't like. But even in that, it demonstrates that the movie was interesting rather than mindlessly dumb, as I consider the merits of how things could have been plotted out differently versus the merits of what was done. To that point, we must still look at the retconning of Jor-El's character, where with his wife Laura, they encouraged Superman to take over the planet, into ingratiating himself to the populace and eventually taking over Earth. In essence, this turns Superman into Omni-Man and the Kryptonians into Viltrumites. Considering that the storyline is already out there and Invincible creators at Image Comics insist that Omni-Man can surely and easily whoop Superman, this is all the more a weird retcon. But aside from that, it's one I don't like just on its own, because this changes Jor-El and the story of Krypton, and nobody asked James Gunn to do so. However, unlike Star Wars retcons starting with Lucas himself in the prequels, before Disney just went to town retconning everything and everyone, it doesn't fundamentally change Superman's story or Superman the movie itself, so it doesn't bother me much or take away from me enjoying the film. Here's to Superman 2. Let's hope it's not going to be long in coming. The last two Superman reboots never got a second Superman movie, so we haven't gotten a Superman 2 since Superman 2 45 years ago. Let's hope it's less than 45 months to the next one. That's my Superman 2025 video essay for reviews and revisits. Remember, reviews and revisits on YouTube and Instagram. On Instagram, reviews_and_revisits. Don't forget to like, subscribe, notification bell. Like and subscribe, and comment down in the comment section. Tell me what you think about some of my points that I made. What do you feel about the movie overall, and just some of the issues with it, or the things that you really liked and enjoyed? Do you really feel like David Cornsweet really embodies Superman, or not so much? Comment down below, like, subscribe, notification bell. We'll get back to you at the next one.